Today's training will focus mainly on trying to be consistent and showing why it's so important to be consistent. So I'm going to take us through this mini part of the training as I screen share here. All right. And so a lot of times when I've done these trainings in the past several years, up to 4 years, I've had people on the call. Today I will not have anyone, it looks like. So I wanted to give it in a way that you can just consume and try to get better. Now, I encourage you not to simply consume this and skip through it and speed through it. And the problem with that is you're not going to have any sort of commitment to it, no investment into it. And if you're one of the people that is fading away with your dream of getting into a tech position and you're really discouraged, then this will help you, but it will only make it worse if you just ignore this, skim over it, think you've heard it before. Um, this is really going to harm you if you just lightly take it. So it's kind of like um, I'm not saying that all of my training is gold. I am not that good of a trainer. However, if you get used to, let's say you were walking on a sidewalk of gold. Every single day you walk out of your house and it's paved in gold. You you would have a tendency to get used to that and ignore it and think that there's nothing there. And now, of course, you might go and dig up the gold and sell it or invest with it or something like that. But when you get used to something that's good, often we take it for granted. So I would encourage you somehow to see if there is any gold in this, not just to ignore it because you think there's nothing there. And I encourage you to see if there's any fool's gold. Maybe there's something I'm blowing smoke here. And I encourage you to tell me that. So, looking right at you in the camera, don't ignore this. I'm going to look at my big screen now and we'll go over there as I sip my tea. Let's talk about a gut check. And this is what I'd like to give you today. I'd like you to grade yourself. Some of you I know that could be watching this have never done this. I'd like to grade you to grade yourself by imagining what others have said about you in the past week. Have there been people who, maybe friends, family, maybe coworkers? What have they said about you? What have they said? Have they said you're friendly, helpful? Have you had silence? Has no one said anything to you or given you any sort of feedback or compliment? Have they said something negative? This is a checkup on your attitude. It's a checkup on your heart. Nobody knows your heart except God. You don't even know your heart very well. I don't know my heart very well. So I need to have people yeah, I need to be open to what others might say. I had some tough conversations. I don't know if they're tough, some deeper conversations with the pastor at the church I'm currently at this week. And I have to be open to hearing what he says and how he says it. And the reason they're tough is because often when you give feedback, you're going to meet some sort of resistance or some sort of it's just natural for us to not assume that everyone knows everything about us or is always speaking something that's true, especially when you don't know the person at all. If you don't know someone and you get feedback from them or you're giving feedback to them, in either situation, you need to be a little bit on guard. But after a while and a few back and forth, a little trust is built. and you need to get feedback. If you're not willing to take in feedback, or if you're getting silence here, you feel like nobody's saying anything, it could be that you're not approachable. All right, so what does this have to do with switching to a tech career? If you're the type of person that is unapproachable, then you won't do well when you finally do get into an interview. And people sense that. Recruiters and hiring managers are good at this, sussing out people. And if you're unapproachable or you're shy or you're unapproachable because you're boisterous and too out there, if you can't match and mirror, not just necessarily match and mirror, but be someone who shows that you're going to be approachable. You're going to take some feedback, but you're also going to be confident in moving forward no matter what. Show yourself to be that kind of person, and you'll do well in the interview. And I say this especially for you who aren't getting interviews yet, because you still have time to work on this. I encourage you to reach out to me, and I will give you feedback. If you're in my paid clients program, my private clients, usually the private clients are paid, not always, but usually, then I suggest that you reach out and say, hey, Brooks, what kind of a person do you think I am? And I will give you some feedback. All right, what would others say about you in the past week? So if nobody's given you feedback and you honestly can say you haven't had situations where you get feedback, then this is the question for you. What would others say about you? Not just think, but say. What would your spouse, if you have one, your child or children, your niece or nephew, your neighbors, your coworkers, your faith family, people in your church or synagogue or your temple, wherever you're at? For me, this past week, it was my 30th anniversary. And I got some good feedback from my wife, some positive feedback and some negative feedback. And I need to listen to that. And if I don't, I'm really not someone that people can work with. That's tough because maybe you're like me and you think you're a go-getter. I think I am. I think I'm someone who's going to be always trying to produce, always trying to work hard, always trying to hustle here and there. And if I don't get feedback, I can really run into a rut. I can really get to the place where my ventures come to a dead end and it was all a waste because I don't know how to listen to some feedback that might be critical to my plans. Critical meaning negative, but critical meaning also very important to my plans. So that's the type of personality I am. What if you're laid back? What if you're the type of person who really is really chill and you're going to go with your plans no matter what? And people don't know your plans. You're not very out there. And you just kind of have one solid plan in the back of your mind, and you've been pursuing it for 10 years, maybe 5 or 10 months. You've been pursuing it. Nothing really has happened yet, and you really don't want to share it with anybody because you're fearing that they're going to give you some critical feedback. You need to share it. You need to get it out in the open, and you need to become someone who can get some feedback. So if that's the case still, you need to imagine what would other people say. And if you're thinking people haven't said anything, but they would say that you're the type of person, say your name is John. John, what I'd say about you is you're kind of quiet, you're kind of into yourself, and I'm not sure who you are and what you're doing. That means that you probably need to speak up a little bit more. You can't get hired when you're that quiet because you need to be someone who can speak up and share a little bit about what you're doing, what's encouraging to you, and what sort of projects you've been on. That's the type of person who can get through some screening calls. All right, so you may know something that you can do, and I want you to become better, and I want you to imagine what it would be like and what would happen if 1% of increase and improvement occurred in your life when it comes to relating to other people? What if you spoke up more on one day of the week? That's not even 1%. Without boiling it all down, what if you just chose to speak up during a meal with your friends or coworkers? You just chose to put yourself out there a little bit more. What if you're like me? You're already speaking up. Well, what would it be like if I just didn't share everything for 1% less each week, or didn't share everything 1% more? If I simply held back my opinions 1% more each week or each day. So maybe just holding back one time per day. And then imagine the relationships. What would happen with these relationships? What would the 1% be in a relationship? So think of someone who's valuable to you, and or you're valuable to them. If you improved your attitude towards them or your service towards them 1% more, what would that relationship turn into? It would be good. The reason I'm having us go through this as a gut check is it might seem like self improvement, but it is very pointed self improvement, because when you get into interview situations, the way that you act normally around people will come out. People will be able to assess. This isn't about you having a story, uh, trying to have a good story about a conflict. That's not what this is, although this applies to that. That's a common interview question. Tell me about a time when you had a conflict and you worked it out. This is more about you trying to become the type of person who works more naturally, more of a servant in relationships, so that you get sussed out as someone who's very valuable and can be worked with in a company. Before I go to the next slide, I just want to remind you of what I've said so many times. Often the people who are the smartest at code and figuring out how problems can be solved in code are not, most of the time, they're not very good at working with people. And the problem with that is we need your service. If you're one of those smartest people in the world, or you're very intelligent and you can figure out problems on a screen, we need your service in the world here. We need you to keep pushing. We need you to get out there and get a position or start a company or get some projects done. The reason we need you is because we need good people like you. If you're watching this, you're on my good people list because you're either following me or you're in my client program or you're on my academy at school. So I don't mess around with people that are inherently evil trying to make bad things happen. So all that to say, we need you doing your skill. We need you to do what you do. And in order to do that, serve more people, you have to be able to work with more people. On the flip side is, if you are really good with working with people and you need to work on skills more, that's probably why you're not in a position yet. You can get to the screening interview. You can get through it. You can even get through the second or third interview. But if you start flailing about and getting a little underconfident, they can tell that you're blowing a little smoke. Just being a good guy can get you in a job, but it might not be the job that you want. So you need to work on your tech skills. I would fall into that category. So I have to work and brush up quite a bit. And I'm often in positions where I'm learning a lot. All right. Let's talk about self-reliance. I want you to get confidence in what you do. I want you to get confidence to the point where you can rely on yourself. And that means you're not needy, but you're not overly confident. You want to serve a lot of people, but you don't necessarily need a lot of people. You can be around a lot of people and work with them to build something even greater. But confidence means you can do this. And without this, you're going to have a scramble. If you can't ever get confident in one area, so you can't ever get really good at data analysis, you can't ever really get good at um, getting a job then in data analysis. For example, that's one example, but if you keep trying to get into a data analyst job and you don't have confidence in what you're doing and how to use, maybe you're using Python, PyTorch, is that used for data analysis? Maybe some other skill that you've got to get. But you keep trying to find data analysis jobs. You will be scrambling for quite a while until you get confident. You feel like you know that you can do this on your own. You can you can create projects, you can do analyses all on your own. So confidence is a metric which improves performance because of improved performance. It's like a flywheel. In other words, it allows your performance to shift into a higher gear. Less work, higher output. If you're on a bicycle, you know that you can shift gears. When you're going up a hill, you can pedal faster and get up the hill with less effort. When you're going on a downhill, you need to then shift to a higher gear so that you can pedal less and go faster with less effort. Otherwise, you're doing too much work to get down a hill. Of course, you can coast as well. Let's just say you're going on a straight path and you start to build up your speed. You shift into higher gear, your pedals start to go slower, but you're covering more ground with the same amount. So, in other words, there's probably some science around how many RPMs or your cadence you need to have. But if you can keep your cadence at a certain level and go faster and faster and faster, that's what the gears do for you. And that's what's happened in my career. I've been able to look at positions and apply to them. And my application to job offer percentage, it was very low last year, very low. In fact, it was 2%. I did get a position, and then this year, I had another situation where it was very high. And I think it has to do with being able to shift gears. When you have a level of confidence in your niche, you can work the same amount and get higher pay. It's because you've added on these experiences, you've added on these projects you've done to the point where you're working, it feels like you're working the same amount, but you're able to earn more or get into more interesting positions that you want or get more benefits or just work less each day. Instead of doing 10-hour days, you can do an 8-hour day and get the same amount of work done. And I'll just say that comes with experience, but it starts with confidence. Think of confidence as the gear system. Low confidence, you're going to have to pedal a lot and very hard. High confidence and go slow. Pedal a lot and go slowly, almost like you're going uphill. And then high confidence levels, which is not just a mental thing, it comes through really knowing that you can do something. High confidence levels, that's like pedaling slowly, not necessarily going downhill, but pedaling slowly and going very fast. So confidence doesn't just get you into a position, it actually becomes the reason that you can perform even better. It keeps building on itself. Um, Maybe the last little metaphor I can give you is, of course, maybe it's in a tech skill. Imagine a person my age. I'm 51. I grew up typing on typewriters. Um, if I had been gone from a typewriter to typing on a phone, I would not be very good at all. And I would have no confidence if you said, hey, I'll pay you So let's say I was up to like 82 words per minute or something like that back in the day on the typewriter. And if you're around my age, you remember where WPM, words per minute, was a big deal when you get your first jobs. Because if you had to type on your job, it wasn't necessarily a tech, there were no high tech jobs yet. But if you had to type, they want to know your words per minute. No autocorrect or nothing. If back in that day you'd show me this piece of technology called a mobile phone, and it had a screen on it that you could type on the screen, there's no way I'd hit that 88 or whatever I said, 88 words per minute. I would not have confidence that I could get a job working with that, and no one would trust me because I would say I've never done it before. They would hire someone over me. But now, of course, we get very good at using these devices. And this allows us, obviously, we can do a lot more with a phone than a typewriter. But what's the difference? Why now are we so confident? I bet you're confident on typing on your phone. If I said, I'll pay you $1,000 to type this week on your phone for an hour a day, you could probably do it. And you have to get everything done. You could probably type pretty fast. The difference is that we've had experience doing it. The difference is we slowly merged into the phone. We went from a typewriter, I did, to a word processor, electronic typewriter that can kind of do some autocorrect for you, um, to a word processor on a computer, to a laptop, to a smaller laptop, keys closer together, and then to a phone. So experience. That's what it's going to build some confidence in you, is getting experience in doing what you're doing. And that's usually the only thing that will get you confidence. Getting a certification does not necessarily get you confidence. It could. Depends what kind of certification. So I just like to give you that. You have to have confidence. And then I'd like you to, let's skip this one. I'd like you to try to overcome some fear, trepidation, some putting things off. I have that. And I'd like you to do this little trick I learned. Let's see, by, from a guy named David Allen. I think it was from him. I think it was from him. But anyway, if you're putting something off right now, like you leave you with this little tidbit of this little tool, which I've used so many times. You're putting something off. I don't know what it is for you. Maybe it's a course. Maybe it's applying for jobs. Maybe it's figuring out your resume again. So we don't, by the way, we do not get caused to put things off. It's emotions. We feel a certain way, so we don't do it. Usually it's a fear that we can't do it. And circumstances, well, we're just so busy. We can't get this done. So those are lies, of course. The next few steps help us break those lies and get this thing done. So take out an actual piece of paper, put it on the desk in front of you, grab a pen. It can be a Post-it note, it can be just a loose leaf, whatever. Grab a pen. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment what you would have to write down. These will be called tasks, basically, to have your assistant do the thing for you. You don't have an assistant, I bet. What would an assistant have to do? Just write that down. So if it's a course, the assistant would have to go and locate the course and purchase the course and open it up and put it on the computer and then hand you the computer to get you started on the course, for example. If, whatever it is, be very specific. Then, as you list these steps, be very, very explicit. Go to the heart. For me, I had to repaint part of the house. So I had to go to the hardware and match a paint chip. That's the first step. I put that first step down. So I don't want you to spend even 5 minutes on this. I want you to spend 1 to 2 minutes. And all you're doing is thinking of step-by-step process in your mind. But then you can write down more steps, but write down just the first step for now. And for me, that was go to the hardware store and match a paint chip because I already had the paint chip in one of my pockets for weeks. I'm sure it wasn't in my pocket. It was in a little Ziploc bag by where my bed is. I'm pretty sure about that. And I just couldn't do this. I was putting this off. So I wrote down just the first step. And then, of course, as you can see, you've been reading forward. Walk away for 10 seconds from the piece of paper. Now come back to it and say, wait, I don't have an assistant. I might as well do this myself. That got me off the chair and off the whole cycle of procrastination for painting my house. And I bet it will help you as well. Try it. If you have any questions, you can reach out. Well, I want to thank you for joining the training and watching and being faithful to it. That says a lot about you. And if you're skipping through and you haven't watched it, I encourage you to go back and watch. And I can't make you do it. And that's the whole problem. I wish I could make people do things and control your trajectory, but this is up to you. And I want to encourage you in any way I can. So thank you for joining and have a great rest of your day.